Coming up next on Scripps News Live, another step in special counsel Jack Smith's 2020 election investigation. The meeting between Smith's team and former President Trump's lawyers as he faces a potential third indictment.
Citizens, including the people of this great city, deserve constitutional and lawful policing.
The Justice Department now investigating the Memphis Police Department after the beating death of Tyree Nichols. The details from that announcement coming up.
It's good news for the economy overall, but it's bad news for our individual wallets.
The Federal Reserve taking steps to raise interest rates yet again, what it all means for consumers and the cost being passed on to you when you buy groceries.
Today I'm announcing additional steps to help states and cities deal with the consequences of extreme heat.
And President Biden looking to provide relief from record high temperatures still baking parts of the nation. What he is announcing to help protect workers. Scripps News Live begins right now. Hey there, hello to you. Welcome to Scripps News Live. Good to see you today. I'm Veronica Cruz. We've got some new developments for former President Donald Trump. His legal team and members of special counsel Jack Smith's office met again this morning as a potential third indictment looms. Now, you might remember that last week, Trump said that he had been informed he is a target in the Justice Department's January 6th investigation, indicating that an indictment could be on the horizon. Let's get you right out to national political correspondent Avajoy Burnett, who joins us now live from Washington. So Avajoy, I understand there has been significant movement at a federal courthouse where the grand jury has been meeting, also at the special counsel's office. What are you hearing right now?
Hi, Veronica. Washington, D.C. is busy today. Let's start out at the special counsel's office, where we do know that attorneys for the former president met with the special counsel earlier today. That meeting lasted for about an hour. And as I started to come into work and thought about what could potentially be happening in that meeting, I called up an attorney to get an idea of some of the topics that they could be discussing. But once I got here to work, we got a tweet from the former president, and he shed some light on what was actually happening inside. And I want to show you something that he posted on social media earlier today. He said that his attorneys had a very productive meeting with the DOJ this morning, explaining in detail that he did nothing wrong. He went on to say that there's no indication of notice. No indication of notice was given during that meeting. And what that means is, if there's no indication of notice, former President Trump is implying that an indictment is not imminent. But we know that that is not true. History has shown that if someone has been given a target letter, that it's likely that they will then be indicted. So we're still waiting to see if and when an indictment will come down. But in speaking to the former prosecutor today, we wanted to get an idea of some of the other topics that were discussed in that meeting. And here's more in what he had to say.
I think that certainly they're still trying to convince Jack Smith that he should not go and present this indictment and that their client should not be charged. He's listening to them. I'm sure they've had that conversation over and over and over again, and he seems pretty made up his mind at this point that he's going to present an indictment. So if that's the case, then they're trying to figure out logistics.
And we told you that it's been busy here in the nation's capital today. About 2 miles away from the special counsel's office, the grand jury resumed all of their proceedings today. Remember, they normally meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And earlier this week on Tuesday, there were no sightings of members of the grand jury. But today, we do know that they are in session, going through their deliberations. Whichever portion they're looking over right now, we don't know, because those proceedings are private. But David S. Weinstein also spoke with us about what could potentially happen if they actually vote on an indictment.
In routine cases, if it's not filed under seal, as soon as it's filed with the clerk's office, it's a public record, a public document. And as soon as it hits the court file, it's there for the public to see.
So once there is an indictment, if there is one for this January 6th investigation, we will be looking to see what are the details in that indictment. How many charges are there? How many pages? All of that will give us an idea of just how much Jack Smith already knows. Remember, this was a very public thing that so many people across the globe watched, what played out on January 6th. So if there is an indictment, Veronica, we'll be able to get an idea of exactly what charges he will be pursuing. But once again, we want to be clear that as of this moment, there is no indictment of the former president, Donald Trump, revolving around the January 6th insurrection.
Absolutely. And all this comes as lawmakers break for their August recess. So interesting timing here. Avajoy Burnett reporting live from Washington. Avajoy, will be circling back. Thank you. So the Justice Department has opened a civil rights investigation into the city of Memphis and its police department. The goal is to determine if there's a pattern of racial discrimination or misconduct within the police force. The announcement comes more than 6 months after Memphis police officers tasered, pepper sprayed, and brutally beat 29-year-old Tyree Nichols. He died 3 days later. Let's get you right out to Justice correspondent Jamal Andres, who has been tracking this investigation from the very beginning for us. Jamal, what more can you tell us about this investigation into the Memphis Police Department?
Yeah, Veronica. Well, look, this is a years-long process. It takes usually 2 years to even complete this investigation. That means community interviews, ride-alongs with police officers, taking tips from the community. They said they were opening up a toll-free line to just receive information from the Memphis community. And then after that, you have to negotiate that consent decree. And then, of course, the real work begins, which is implementing these changes to rectify the problems that are discovered during this investigation. And this is often how these things come about. You have a high-profile incident of police violence. In this case, the brutal beating of Tyree Nichols that leads to this large-scale investigation by the Department of Justice. They sort of take a where there's smoke, there's fire approach, and we saw this in Chicago after Laquan McDonald. We saw this in Minneapolis after George Floyd, in Louisville after Breonna Taylor. Here's Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark making some of this announcement. Listen.
We received multiple reports of officers escalating encounters with community members resulting in excessive force. There are also indications that officers may use force punitively when faced with behavior they perceive to be insolent. The information we reviewed also shows that officers may use force against people who are already restrained or in custody. At times, the use of force practices results in serious physical injuries.
Now, in this particular investigation, Veronica, they're going to focus on three things. First, the idea of racially discriminatory policing against Black residents. Obviously, Memphis, a majority Black city. Kristen Clark pointed out that they still are receiving reports that Black residents may be receiving that discriminatory policing. Also, unlawful stops, searches, and arrests, as well as reports of excessive force on community members that is escalated by the police department officers. And two things I want to clarify here, because the Department of Justice has a lot of activity going on in the Memphis area. One, there is a separate review of police policies going on in the Memphis Police Department by the Department of Justice. That's being carried out by the Community Oriented Policing Services, or COPS, which is a sector of the DOJ. And there is still a criminal federal civil rights investigation into those officers that were involved in Tyree Nichols' death.
That's right. That investigation continues. But in terms of what is happening now with this investigation directly into the Memphis Police Department, have we heard any reaction from the family of Tyree Nichols, Jamal?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we heard from the Tyree Nichols family here is that they hope that this is a step in the right direction. But, aside from just their family, the Memphis community has been calling for a patterns and practice investigation for some time. Obviously, we saw so much backlash and community turmoil following the death of George Floyd. But even prior to that, in 2015, the Memphis community members were calling for an investigation of this kind into the Memphis Police Department. And so for some, this feels like a long time coming and something that they have been asking for quite some time. And this was sort of the catalyst to get that off the ground.
All right, Jamal Andrews reporting live from Dallas. Jamal, thank you so much for the update. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell back at work after appearing to freeze up during a news conference Wednesday. The Kentucky senator abruptly stopped speaking and then stared into space for about 20 seconds. His colleagues helped him walk away from the podium. He returned later, telling reporters that he was just fine, even joking about a phone call with President Biden.
Well, the president called to check on me. I told him I got sandbagged.
Oh, nice. How are you feeling now, sir? How are you feeling now?
I'm fine.
Have you seen a doctor? Are you going to see a doctor?
Any idea what happened?
Huh?
Any idea what happened?
I'm fine.
McConnell joined a bipartisan group of lawmakers today welcoming the Italian Prime Minister to Capitol Hill ahead of her meeting with President Biden. McConnell also delivered remarks on the Senate floor but didn't address yesterday's issue. Developing now, the Biden administration launching a new program to help curb cancer deaths in the United States. The Precision Surgical Interventions Program is under the administration's Advanced Health Research Agency. It is the first cancer-focused initiative the White House revealed under the agency. The program will collect ideas from the public and private sectors to advance cancer treatment. Interested researchers can attend an event in Chicago in September in order to submit their ideas. Still to come on Scripps News Live, firefighters in Italy finally getting some relief as they battle wildfires in the south, the ongoing efforts there and in nearby Greece. Also, inflation still remains high. The latest move from the Federal Reserve and what it all means for you and your wallet.
American firefighters north of the border.
They're in need now. We're happy to help. We might be in need next year, or maybe even later this year.
Meet the Americans helping in the Canadian wildfire fight. Tonight at 8/7 Central on Scripps News Tonight.
Hi friends, Richard Karn here. Now I'm known as the guy who can fix just about anything, but the technology in most appliances requires very special training to fix. My point is, even I know when I've met my match, and that's why my family has Choice Home Warranty. So we won't get stuck with high-priced repairs.
Choice Home Warranty covers over 25 major home systems and appliances. That's your AC, heating, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and so much more.
Imagine for less than a cup of coffee a day, Choice Home Warranty can help protect you from expensive major system and appliance breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. But you have to call now before it's too late.
Every homeowner should have Choice Home Warranty. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your appliances.
Washing machine, dryer, refrigerator, air condition. If I had any issues arise, they were able to take care of it immediately.
Now, homeowner's insurance won't protect you when your home's major systems and appliances break down due to normal wear and tear. But Choice Home Warranty will. They can help cover repairs and replacements.
Choice Home Warranty is the best warranty we've ever used. It would save you so much money in the long run.
Hey, I'm not the only one raving about Choice Home Warranty. They were named a Best Home Warranty Company and Best Claim Service by U.S. News 360 Reviews.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and get access to a nationwide network of over 15,000 technicians and the latest appointment setting technology so you'll know when they're on their way.
If I have an issue with an appliance or something around the house, I just call up Choice Home Warranty and I don't have to worry about that.
So, do what this old DIYer did and call Choice Home Warranty now before something breaks down. Tell them I sent you and get your first month free.
Call Choice Home Warranty before it's too late and get protection for your heating, AC, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and more. Call for your free quote today. Call in the next 5 minutes and get your first month free. 800-360-4534. 800-360-4534.
This is a paid advertisement for legal services. Breaking news for anyone who spent time at Camp Lejeune before 1988. President Biden has signed the PACT Act. This means you may be entitled to significant compensation from the federal government. If you or a family member spent time at Camp Lejeune, you consumed toxic water known to cause serious health issues, injuries, and even death. A special hotline has been established. Call now for a free case evaluation. Just call 800-793-0837 now. Even if you've been turned down in the past, this new legislation allows you to refile a claim. This will not affect your eligibility for VA disability benefits. These are benefits you earned and deserve. We encourage anyone who spent time at Camp Lejeune to file a claim. Call now to see if you or loved ones qualify for significant compensation from the federal government. Don't wait. Just call 800-793-0837 now. That's 800-793-0837.
Well, the U.S. economy exceeded expectations for growth in the second quarter. The GDP grew 2.4% between April and June, and that's at a faster pace than in the first 3 months of the year and better than what economists were predicting. The Labor Department also released the latest jobless claims today, and the figure showed a drop of 7,000 claims from the week before, better than what analysts were expecting. And we are now just 1% away from the Federal Reserve ending its fight against inflation. The Fed announcing another quarter-point interest rate hike as part of its effort to bring inflation down to 2%. National correspondent Addie Guajardo explains what this latest rate hike will mean for you and your wallet.
Consumers may need to dig deeper into their pockets for some big buys.
When I started looking from a year ago, a lot of those prices have changed dramatically.
Gabriella Woody sealed the deal on her new SUV just hours before the latest interest rate hike announcement. She says even before the latest increase, she noticed car prices rising at least a couple $1,000s.
So within my budget, thank goodness, but I mean, I probably could have gotten a couple, like a sunroof or an automatic liftgate, but those weren't in my price range anymore.
A new vehicle averaged $48,000 last month, about 25% higher than pre-pandemic levels. Used cars will run you a stinging $30,000, 45% more compared to pre-pandemic prices.
Are you at all concerned about the increase in interest rates?
There's always a little bit of a concern, but, you know, just like anything else, we've gotten through it.
Dora Herman with Courtesy Chevrolet in Arizona says they'll navigate this interest hike like all the others by working with customers. She says as interest rates go up, so do monthly payments.
It ranges anywhere from $500 to $700, average for the last few years.
Good afternoon.
On Wednesday, the Federal Reserve raised interest rates by a quarter point, bringing it to a range of 5.25 to 5.5%, impacting auto loans, mortgages, and credit cards.
It's good news for the economy overall, but it's bad news for our individual wallets.
Over the last year, inflation has steadily declined. It peaked at a 9% annual rate in June of 2022. It's now at 3%. But that's still too high for the Fed, which is still raising interest rates and making it more expensive to borrow money in a bid to slow down inflation below 2%.
We're in an environment where the Federal Reserve wants to tamp down inflation further, and it's willing to accept essentially some detrimental impacts.
Those detrimental impacts include a jump in the cost of auto loans, mortgage rates hovering at 7%, and credit card rates at near or all-time highs. But Wallet Hub analyst Jill Gonzalez says rate hikes affect much more than the interest we pay, adding that they're necessary evils.
That is, something that the Fed is well aware of. That's kind of baked in here. They want people to start going down.
The hikes are part of the Fed's strategy to pull off a so-called soft landing, bringing inflation down to a 2% target without falling into recession. Addie Guajardo, Scripps News, Phoenix, Arizona.
So the Fed hinted at another interest rate increase later this year. And while current interest rate hikes could deter some people from spending on some items, everyone still needs to buy food, and it's getting expensive. According to the Consumer Price Index, food prices increased 5.7% in the past year. And then companies like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and Unilever have not only reported higher prices, but are reporting higher profits as well. Take a look. Coca-Cola reporting its profits rose 33% last quarter from the same time last year. Unilever, who owns companies like Ben & Jerry's and Dove Soap, reported a 20% profit growth in the first half of this year, and that's compared to last year. And then Pepsi reported its second quarter profits doubled from a year earlier. Still, costs are being passed on to you, the consumer. I spoke with senior industry analyst Ted Rossman about these costs and when or if we could see a drop. So companies are admitting to raising prices, yet we keep paying them, and then the Fed keeps raising interest rates. Are we just trapped in an endless cycle?
This is an important point because even though inflation's coming down, you're right, that doesn't mean we're going to roll the clock back to 2019 prices. Lower inflation just means that prices will still be growing, they'll just be growing at a slower rate. I think that's a really important point here, that there's a cumulative effect to all this. The fact that we've had this inflation the past couple of years, the fact that interest rates are up. I mean, look at something like credit cards. The average credit card rate right now is about 20.5%. Most people are facing credit card rates that are 5.25 percentage points higher than they were at the beginning of last year. There's a cumulative effect to that toll.
And we are still seeing layoffs. People are still talking about a potential recession. What are your thoughts right now? Because, I mean, is this really sustainable, this cycle that we're in right now, despite this strong labor market, stable consumer spending? I mean, can the average American continue to afford these types of prices, especially if they do continue to rise?
We continue to be surprised at the resilience of consumer spending. We got a really positive GDP number today, 2.4% in the second quarter versus a 2% expectation. I think everybody continues to be amazed that this recession timetable keeps getting pushed back, and maybe it won't happen at all. I think the odds of a so-called soft landing, Fed bringing inflation down without causing a recession, I think those odds are rising. And I think we can look at things like the strong job market, the fact that a lot of people saved more during the pandemic, so there is still some of that dry powder. Now, of course, that's at this point more at upper income levels. But even if we look at middle income and lower income households, the debt to income ratio is actually looking pretty favorably, historically speaking. So I think the resilience of the consumer is a really important topic here. Hopefully it continues. I think that the tight labor market is definitely keeping things afloat.
Ted Rossman there with Bankrate. Now, Rossman adds that people are still spending plenty of money on experiences like travel and concerts, while sales in the physical goods sector also remain strong. Still ahead on Scripps News Live, President Biden taking steps to address extreme heat across the United States, how it all ties into his plans to curb the effects of climate change. Also, intense fighting continues in Ukraine's counteroffensive. We'll have the very latest from the front lines next.
If you're living with diabetes, this is the sound that could change your life.
Great news for people living with diabetes. Now you can wear a continuous glucose monitor and eliminate routine finger sticks. The days of repeated, painful finger sticks are over.
Call 800-719-8907.
If you use insulin daily to manage your condition, a continuous glucose monitor could help you control your diabetes and reduce or eliminate those painful finger sticks. If you have Medicare or private insurance, US Med can deliver a CGM system right to your door. And if you qualify, there may be little or no cost to you. Shipping is free and will even bill your insurer directly. Call now to get your continuous glucose monitoring system so you can take control of your diabetes and get back to enjoying life.
Call 800-719-8907. That's 800-719-8907.
There's a new victim of identity theft every 3 seconds. And checking your credit score or bank statements may not be enough to alert you. That's because identity threats appear in more places than you realize. Identity thieves can use your information to open loans, transfer home titles, even commit crimes.
Someone stole my information and tried to buy a car in my name.
LifeLock monitors for threats to your identity, including ones you may miss, and alerts you if there's an issue. And if you're a victim, your dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist will work to fix it.
If something happens, you have somebody fighting for you.
All plans backed by LifeLock's $1 Million Protection Package, including reimbursement for stolen funds.
I know LifeLock has me covered.
LifeLock, identity theft protection starts here. Call the number on your screen or visit lifelock.com/25now and use promo code 25now to save 25% on your first year of identity theft protection. Enroll now.
This stuff is a miracle. It took us 60 prototypes. When we made this stuff, it grew into the #1 dermatologist recommended sweat brand for all over the body. When people say this is the first thing I've tried that stopped my sweat, that makes my day. We have a sweat quiz that'll customize the products for you based on where you sweat, based on how much you sweat. Free shipping, money back guarantee. There's really no risk to giving it a try. If you had a sweaty face or sweaty underarms or sweaty hands, that's really why we made Carpe.
Avoid expensive treatments, injections, and prescriptions. Your total body sweat solution is available at mycarpe.com.
I'm Del Walters, and this is The Debrief.
Nearly 40 million Americans on alert.
Breaking down the headlines.
We're going to take a deeper dive.
Scripps News brings you reporting from across the country
in downtown Baltimore, live in Maricopa County,
and around the world.
The counteroffensive is likely to kick off.
Scripps News, London.
With up-to-the-minute information, giving you the whole story.
Let's get you caught up on some of today's top stories.
The Debrief, live tonight, starting at 6/5 Central, only on Scripps News.
Reports of a large push by Kiev's forces just miles away, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is visiting the southeastern city of Dnipro today. It's an area where Russian President Vladimir Putin says the fighting has intensified significantly. Zelensky is meeting with military leaders, getting updates on the situation on the battlefield, as well as how to get supplies for troops and how to strengthen air defenses. The Ukrainian push comes in the wake of recent Russian military and political turmoil. After a slow start to its counteroffensive last month, Ukraine is picking up momentum in the fight against Russia. According to the New York Times, Pentagon sources confirm Russian reports of stepped-up attacks in southern Ukraine. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says he remains optimistic that U.S. support has been helping.
But they've been very deliberate. They've been serving manpower and equipment, and so they still have a number of options available to them. And we can expect that they'll continue to press. But
while Ukraine focuses on a ground attack, Russia is countering with an aerial barrage. More than 36 cruise missiles hit targets across Ukraine this week. And in the meantime, the U.S. and other allies trying to find ways to export grain out of Ukraine. Russia recently pulled out of a deal to allow safe travel for grain ships leaving Ukraine. And that food is crucial to the world food supply, especially for developing nations. U.S. officials say that they are working to find ways to move the grain over land, at least for now.
So we are working with our EU partners. We're working with Ukraine and other European partners to see if there's other ways to get grain to market over land. But that's not as efficient. It's not effective. You can't move as much or as fast.
Grain prices have gone up since Russia pulled out of the grain deal brokered by Turkey. The United Nations is overseeing a coordinated effort to keep grain moving. Now, if the grain from Ukraine slows down too much, it could trigger a potential humanitarian food crisis. Now to West Africa, Niger's president vowing to protect democracy and fight back against a military coup that ousted him from office. The soldiers went on national television last night to announce that they had removed Mohamed Bazoum from office. He's being held at the presidential palace right now. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken called for his release. Bazoum was elected back in 2021 during Niger's first peaceful democratic transfer of power since its independence from France back in 1960. Thanks for joining us. I'm Veronica de la Cruz. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. And don't forget to check us out on scripsnews.com. Now, if you are staying with us, we have much more news headed your way. You're watching Scripps News Live.
Hi, and welcome everyone watching at home. We're here to remind you that we have agents standing by right now to answer your legal questions. So if you've been injured in an accident that was not your fault, call now. Find out if you have a case and how much is potentially worth. I'm Gina Bellich, here with spokesman and TV personality Tom Mustin. So Tom, tell everyone watching at home who should call right now.
Well, Gina, first off, thank you for having me here in the studio. Now, as far as who should call in, the answer is anyone who's been injured in an accident that was not your fault should give us a call right now. Agents are standing by to answer any questions you may have and tell you how much your case is potentially worth.
Thanks, Tom. So what kind of calls are we seeing today?
Well, Gina, we're getting calls about all types of accidents, but the most common has been car accidents. So if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, take that first step and give us a call. We'll answer your questions, and you'll find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth.
Thanks, Tom. Call now.
It's Christmas all July at Balsam Hill. It's never too early to save, so why wait? Get amazing deals now on our wide variety of exclusive designs. Find the perfect tree at up to 50% off at balsamhill.com.
How does Klein Inspector get among the most big verdicts and settlements of any law firm in the country? Because Klein Inspector is an award-winning team with 5 doctor lawyers, the most of any firm in the United States. And that's why the New York Times calls Klein Inspector a powerhouse law firm. So if a defective product, motor vehicle accident, or medical malpractice caused a catastrophic injury, call Klein Inspector.
Let's get you updated right now on some of our top stories at this hour. The Justice Department opening an investigation into the Memphis Police Department and the city itself. It follows the beating death of Tyree Nichols at the hands of Memphis officers. The investigation will look to see if there is a pattern or practice of racial discrimination within the police force. Former President Donald Trump's lawyers met with Special Counsel Jack Smith's office this morning. It comes ahead of a potential 3rd indictment for the former president. Trump has said he is a target in the Justice Department's January 6th investigation. A grand jury met today on the case, hearing evidence that could implicate Trump in efforts to overturn the 2020 election. 3 days after his oldest son, Bronny, went into cardiac arrest, LeBron James says that his family is safe and healthy. The NBA superstar's 18-year-old son was rushed to the hospital Monday after collapsing at practice with the USC men's basketball team. In a social media post today, his father thanked the online community for their messages of support. Hey there, welcome to Scripps News Live. Great to see you on a Thursday. I'm Veronica Cruz. As 150 million Americans swelter under heat alerts right now, President Biden addressed the extreme temperatures gripping parts of the nation. He unveiled a new relief plan that includes worker safety protections and a heat hazard alert, among other steps. Now, earlier, the president met with FEMA and NOAA officials and the mayors of San Antonio and Phoenix over the heat wave. Phoenix has weathered 27 straight days of temperatures over 110 degrees. Scripps White House correspondent Haley Bull joins us now live. All right, Haley, walk us through what happened today and the announcement in general. What do these new steps entail exactly?
Well, Veronica, this is hyper-focused on addressing extreme heat as parts of the country are facing consecutive weeks with triple-digit temperatures. What it entails is the president tasking the Department of Labor to issue a hazard alert, the first of its kind, as the White House looks to better protect workers and communities in these very high temperatures. And this is especially important for sectors that are more vulnerable to this, including agriculture, construction, firefighting. And what this alert aims to do is not only raise awareness about workers' rights and best practices, but also to increase the enforcement and investigations for heat safety violations. Listen.
And now, at the president's request, we are going to do even more intensified investigations to make sure that we're putting resources where we need them, right? Given the realities of the weather, and given that no worker should have to work under conditions in which they're put at risk due to the weather, not able to take a rest break when they need it, not get water when they need it.
Additionally, the administration also announced investments through NOAA for better forecasting, as well as to enhance water infrastructure on the West Coast. Now, more broadly, the president tying this to climate change, something he has prioritized within his administration. Listen.
I don't think anybody can deny the impact of climate change anymore. There used to be a lot of time when I first got here, a lot of people said, oh, it's not a problem. Well, I don't know anybody, I shouldn't say that. I don't know anybody who honestly believes climate change is not a serious problem. Just take a look at the historic floods in Vermont and California earlier this year. Droughts and hurricanes that are growing more frequent and intense. Wildfires spreading a smoky haze for thousands of miles, worsening air quality. The record temperatures, and I mean record, are now affecting more than 100 million Americans.
But Veronica, some want to see the president take this all a step further. Some progressive lawmakers are asking the president to declare a national climate emergency. When we look on the public opinion here of this, a recent Quinnipiac poll found a majority of Americans are concerned about climate change. Now, the acting labor secretary, we spoke with Julie Sue, says they're also looking into what would be, if it moves forward, the first national rule on heat to really clarify what the standards are on that. So we will certainly follow those developments. Veronica?
Very interesting. All right, Haley Bull reporting live from the White House. Haley, thank you so much. I want to get you overseas now to Europe. People there finally feeling a bit of relief from the heat and a break in what's been a very intense heat wave there. In Italy, fires fueled by these high temperatures now almost fully contained. Italy's Civil Protection Service says that Sicily, Sardinia, Puglia, and Calabria still on alert. Temperatures likely to rise again this weekend. And then in Greece, a wildfire on the Greek island of Rhodes has now burned out of control for 10 days. Satellite data has shown carbon emissions from Greek wildfires this month doubled the previous record, and that data goes back 20 years. Firefighters are battling the flames from the air and also on the ground. Now take a look at this drone video. Look at how close the flames have come to these villas on the island of Rhodes. On the Greek mainland, 2 more deaths are being blamed on the wildfire. One was a woman, the other a shepherd that was just trying to save his flock. The Greek Fire Brigade says 74 firefighters have been injured or have suffered heat stroke while battling the flames over the past 10 days. Canadian officials say there are more than 1,000 active wildland fires there. In response, many U.S. firefighters have been sent in to help, and they're battling a language barrier and foreign territory in a race to contain the flames. National correspondent Thomas Hoppe takes a closer look at how U.S. crews are aiding in the effort.
Yeah, you guys just falling behind Bravo.
Canada had pretty extraordinary fire season here in not just Quebec, but in other provinces as well.
We're here in Val-d'Or, Quebec, Canada, which is just outside the fire zone, about 400 miles northwest of Montreal. We've been working with officials to see what these U.S. crews are up against. Obviously a 1.5 million acre fire, but also working with French-speaking Canadians with this language barrier, all working together to battle the fire.
You can hit me on Simplex 12. It's that time where you got to really, like, tenacity's got to start showing in you, and you got to just really keep your head moving forward, because it's not the most exciting. It can be pretty slow, and we're getting coordinates. You know, we're flying it, finding coordinates in a helicopter. We're sending people out to these little spots, and but it is the most important part of the job.
Canada has been dealing with wildfires since March. The fires have been so intense that smoke has affected the air quality of other provinces and some parts of the U.S. According to the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Center, there are currently more than 1,000 active fires in Canada with 12.1 million acres burned.
Now we're just trying to access all the areas that are still hot and put it out, basically, and leave this whole fire in a place where we can walk away and the local resources can take it over.
At this fire in Quebec, 1.5 million acres have been scorched, and in this time of crisis, there is a need for resources and aid from other countries. At this location, about 400 miles north of Montreal, a combination of Canadian, U.S., and South Korean crews are battling the blazes.
Where are you based out of now? I'm based out of Fairbanks, Alaska.
How long have the Wyoming hotshots been here?
Here on this fire, 13 days.
U.S. crews have been here for nearly 3 weeks and trying to contain the fire. We're told at this location there are more than 100 U.S. wildland firefighters from 20 different states, primarily Missouri, Idaho, and Wisconsin. What is probably the most difficult thing, doing this kind of work?
That's a great question, Thomas. So people spend a lot of time away from home, and used to be a day where we didn't have cell phones. You could call home easily and check in. So we really spend a lot of time thinking about the human factor, the connection that people have with their families, and making sure they have time to stay in touch with their loved ones.
For some people, it's the family that they're leaving behind. For some people, it's the long hours. For some people, it's the hard work. I think that's a super personal question. and it's different for everybody.
According to the U.S. Forest Service, since May 8th, around 2,000 U.S. personnel have been shipped to Canada. Currently, there are 581 Americans assigned to multiple Canadian provinces, all working through language barriers and sharing tactics and resources.
What's really neat about it is working with different people with different languages. Here we have 3 spoken languages with interpreters.
Has that helped the U.S. learn any new tactics or
Yeah,
anything
it's
like
always
that?
great to work with different people from different countries because we learn new techniques that other people use. While we have our standard procedures, we're able to learn from others and how they might do their work.
Due to safety, we were only allowed access to burned areas and to see crews doing arguably one of the most important jobs when it comes to containing the fire, and that's checking for hot spots.
Our mission is to seek out the campfires, the little fires on the edge that have potential to escape if the weather conditions pick up. So the potential of the hot spots that we don't find on the edge left there to smolder under the right conditions can pick up and keep burning again.
But it's important for these crews to help out our neighboring country because this wildfire season isn't slowing down, and it's only a matter of time before we may need the same help.
You know, they're in need now, and so we're happy to help. We might be in need next year, you know, or maybe even later this year, and so it's always nice to stay close with our neighbors. I mean, we're all in this together.
That was Thomas Hoppe reporting for us from Quebec, Canada. Record-breaking heat across many parts of the United States has made it difficult for millions of Americans to spend time outdoors. But for pet parents whose dogs need to get some exercise, going outside is often hard to avoid. But now a woman in South Florida has come up with this game changer of an idea. It's called Floofy Fitness. Floofy Fitness, yes, it's a mobile, climate-controlled gym for dogs. Lauren Coyle's van is perfect for pets to get a run in without overheating and then work off that excess energy. Take a listen to what the owner of Paxton, a young lab, had to say.
He was getting sad, fat, and just, definitely out of shape. And I feel like doing this, he's in air conditioned, and it like mentally stimulates him. So when he comes in, he's tired. He lays on the cold tile and he crashes for like a couple of hours.
I think Paxton likes that treadmill. So nothing beats a happy dog, and it's a pretty cool solution to all of that unforgiving heat. Paxton's pretty cute as well. So if the lack of charging stations is putting the brakes on you getting an electric vehicle, I've got some good news for you right here. At least 30,000 charging ports will be built on major highways across North America. And it's all thanks to 7 automakers: BMW, General Motors, Honda, Hyundai, Kia, Mercedes-Benz, and Stellantis are all part of this joint multi-billion-dollar investment. The project doubles the number of chargers in our region. The automakers plan to have the first chargers up and running next summer and then expect to complete installations by the end of the decade. And that is encouraging news for anyone with an EV. But there is bad news out there if you use gas, because AAA says that gas prices have been rising. They rose 12 cents in just the past 3 days. The national average of unleaded is $3.71 a gallon, and that is the highest in 8 months. It is still way below the $5 plus a gallon that we were paying, though, back in June of 2022. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, a bipartisan group of lawmakers pushing the government for more information on UFOs or UAPs. The response after a hearing on Capitol Hill this week. And we'd like to hear from you. Give us a call on our Scripps News viewer hotline. That number is toll-free, 1-833-4SCRIPPS. Again, it's 1-833-472-7477. Feel free to share your comments and your story ideas. We'll be right back.
If you have this, and you get this, you could end up with this. Unexpected out-of-pocket costs, which for those on Medicare or soon to be, is a good reason to take charge of your health care. So consider this: an AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan from United Healthcare. Why? Because Medicare alone doesn't pay for everything. And what it doesn't pay for, like deductibles and copays, could really add up, even thousands of dollars a year. Medicare supplement plans help by paying some of what Medicare doesn't and making your out-of-pocket costs a lot more predictable. Call United Healthcare today and ask for your free decision guide. Learn more about plan options and rates to fit your needs. Now, if you like this, greater freedom, you'll love that Medicare supplement plans have no networks and no referrals needed. See any doctor, any specialist, anywhere in the U.S., as long as they accept Medicare patients. These types of plans also give you more flexibility when traveling in the U.S. Your plan goes with you, anywhere you go in the country. Even better, these are the only plans of their kind, endorsed by AARP. Call United Healthcare today for your free decision guide. So if you have this and want less out-of-pocket costs and more peace of mind, consider adding this, an AARP Medicare supplement plan. Take charge of your healthcare today. Just use this or this to call United Healthcare about an AARP Medicare supplement plan.
How can a photo become a vibrant part of your home? When you go to tryfracture.com and print your images directly on glass. Get beautiful depth and clarity on a sleek frameless print that's easy to hang and looks incredible in any space. Go to tryfracture.com now to save on glass prints.
Meet Pair Eyewear, the only glasses brand that lets you change your glasses like you change your clothes. Simply snap on a top frame and you're ready to go. Now you can customize a look for every outfit, every occasion, and every day. With hundreds of designs to choose from, Pair makes it easy to match your style and build a collection you'll love. You can even snap on a sun top to instantly turn your pair into sunglasses. Start building your collection today at paireyewear.com.
American firefighters north of the border.
They're in need now. We're happy to help. We might be in need next year, or maybe even later this year.
Meet the Americans helping in the Canadian wildfire fight. Tonight at 8/7 Central on Scripps News Tonight.
Okay, big question. Are we alone in the universe? The answer is no, according to 3 whistleblowers who testified to lawmakers this week. They claim there is a decades-long cover-up by the U.S. government hiding what the feds know about unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs, from the public. Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett says Wednesday's hearing was all about transparency.
If they have this kind of technology, ma'am, they could have done us in a long time ago. I'm not really worried about that. I'm more worried about, and people should be worried about, our government and our Pentagon, who continuously stonewalls us, and members of Congress and staff who stonewalled us with this committee. We weren't even allowed to get down in a skiff to talk to one of the people testifying today about some things that he talked about, and we're not allowed to say in public because of security concerns.
One of the witnesses, retired Major David Grush, told lawmakers the government has information likely dating back to the 1930s. He also claimed some of the sites involving crashed aircraft included non-human remains. A new report out from the Space Foundation shows the 2022 global space economy is sitting at an estimated $546 billion, and that's up $40 billion from the year before. Scripps News Colorado Springs' Devin Karp shows us the impact that it has in Colorado.
It's an extraordinary number, but not a big surprise.
The Dean of Engineering at UCCS isn't shocked by the latest growth of the space industry after a new report from the Space Foundation finds the global space economy in 2022 was $546 billion.
What we did this year, we examined the government budgets of 51 nations. Even that is an indicator of the growth of the global space economy.
The Space Foundation attributes most of this growth to the changing dynamics of public spending and spending from private companies like SpaceX.
Commercial space, out of that $546 billion, now accounts for $427 billion of that total economy.
But as the industry needs a growing workforce, the workers they have are getting close to retirement.
The average age of the aerospace worker, especially in the technical fields, has increased over the last 20 years.
UCCS tells me they're working to meet demand, as their new Aerospace Engineering Center is under construction.
We need to grow that population from about 1,700 students to nearly 3,000 by 2030 to enable a strong workforce with high retention rates in the region.
Dean Rayburn is optimistic for the Springs and putting his faith in people.
I think we have a bright future in the region. I think our economy is extraordinary, but that technical workforce is really going to drive Colorado Springs over the next decade and probably much longer than that.
And that was Devin Karp there with Scripps News Colorado Springs. Now, speaking of space, here's your chance to own a couple of recordings. They were made to let alien beings know what life is like on Earth. It's a copy of a message that was on board NASA's Voyager probes launched back in 1977, and the recordings belong to the late astronomer Carl Sagan. One features Chuck Berry's Johnny Be Good and other music from around the world, and the other recording contains sounds from humpback whales and also greetings in 59 different languages. They're expected to sell for about $600,000. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, do you want to win free food for the rest of your life? Yeah, what Subway is now asking fans to do in order to get this deal. Plus, students of the Omaha Nation getting their hands dirty while growing their community. The collaboration that's teaching more than just gardening, coming up next. And we'd like to remind you right here to follow us online at scripsnews.com, also on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Threads. We'll be right back.
I've been putting off getting life insurance, and I'm not getting any younger.
Have you been thinking about getting a life insurance plan but just keep putting it off? Was that a yes? Then this message is for you. I'm David Denowitz, and I know the importance of life insurance. And that's why I'm here to tell you it's not too late to get the coverage you need.
If you're between the ages of 45 and 85, you can get a policy with a benefit of up to $25,000 and rates available at $5 a week. The phone lines are now open. Just call 800-354-6059.
And your acceptance is guaranteed.
I have a pre-existing medical condition. Is my acceptance guaranteed?
Yes.
Can I get accepted without a medical exam?
Yes. If you're between 45 and 85, you can't be turned down for this guaranteed acceptance life insurance regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam and no health questions. And rates start at just $5 a week. Remember, if you're between 45 and 85, you can't be turned down regardless of your health. Nothing's more important than family. So call now, pick up the phone, and get guaranteed acceptance life insurance today.
Just call 800-354-6059.
I'm 72 and on a fixed income. Is my acceptance guaranteed?
Yes, your acceptance is guaranteed and your rate can never go up for any reason. You can't be turned down regardless of your health. There's just one simple question. Are you between 45 and 85? If you answered yes, don't wait another minute. Call now.
The call is absolutely free and there is no obligation to enroll. Just call 800-354-6059. That's 800-354-6059.
How does Klein Inspector get among the most big verdicts and settlements of any law firm in the country? Because Klein Inspector is an award-winning team with 5 doctor lawyers, the most of any firm in the United States. And that's why the New York Times calls Klein Inspector a powerhouse law firm. So if a defective product, motor vehicle accident, or medical malpractice caused a catastrophic injury, call Klein Inspector.
What should we do?
I'm going to cashnetusa.com. I can apply in minutes, and if approved, we can have the money as soon as the same business day.
Go to cashnetusa.com to apply for the money you need.
Sunday nights on In Real Life, Scripps News journalists take you off the grid.
We were just a bunch of kids with a camera.
And to the heart of the story. In Real Life, Sunday at 8/7 Central, only on Scripps News.
All right, check them out. They're just so cute. 4 baby capybara cubs just born at the San Diego Zoo. They are already off and running. The cubs' parents, Rosalina and Bowie, can be seen in the enclosure as well. The cubs are just 2 days old in this video, and it looks like they have been busy exploring, checking out their digs. Capybaras are native to Central and South America, and they are the largest rodents on Earth. A collaboration between students of the Omaha Nation and a group called Jobs for America's Graduates Nebraska has produced a thriving community asset. The students are planting the seeds for a healthy future for their community. Alex Whitney from Scripps News Omaha, Nebraska tells us more.
What's happening out here? We are creating a sustainable food system for our community and jobs for our kids.
Just down the street from the Omaha Nation's public school in Macy is a plot of land growing just about every kind of produce you can think of. It's an impressive display that just a few years ago was only an idea.
Our students sat and talked about the strengths of the community and the opportunities of the community. So we did like a needs assessment.
The students wanted to pursue a project that wouldn't just help their career prospects, but also give back to the community they cherish.
We historically as a people have high obesity, high diabetes, high cancer rate. And we could build all the educational facilities we want, but it's all going to start right here. The cure's right here for all those things.
In the years since the project has been launched, the community gardens have grown to encompass 11,000 square feet of food plots and pollinator habitats.
My favorite thing to do is probably water, just because the way I like to think of watering is like feeding the plants.
The food is all planted, cared for, and harvested by students using the techniques that their ancestors have handed down for generations. Techniques like growing the three sisters, corn, squash, and bean together.
So they would plant the corn and wait for it to get 4 or 5 inches. Then they'd plant Sister Bean next to it, and she would climb the corn, using the corn to climb. And then Sister Squash did the ground cover to keep the weeds down. So our people had it down where they only had to weed their garden twice a year.
The students aren't just learning skills in the field. The JAG program is giving them everything that they need to pursue a career after they graduate. And it couldn't happen without a multi-organizational partnership and the support of Omaha Nation Public Schools Superintendent Stacy Hardy.
The JAG program is a perfect example of a workforce development program. We're honored at United Way of the Midlands to run the JAG Nebraska program in partnership with the Department of Labor, with the Department of Health and Human Services, Governor Pillen, and the state, and then we have all of our school partners that are here really preparing students to enter the workforce.
By spending even just a few minutes with the JAG students and their instructors, you can feel the heart and soul that goes into their community garden.
I don't have any words for it. I am in Case Bay. That's my clan from my tribe. And our original role before we were colonized was to make sure that all of our people were fed. So I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Thanks to Alex Whitney for reporting from Nebraska there. Okay, so if you've got a love for sandwiches and you aren't really too attached to your first name, well, Subway has an opportunity for you. Take a listen to this. The sandwich chain is running a promotion, and they're giving people a chance to win free sandwiches for life, but only if they agree to change their first name to Subway. The company is going to pay the legal fees to assume, quote, a new iconic identity. And this big contest will begin on August 1st. Okay. In the 2019 Women's World Cup final, the U.S. beat the Netherlands 2-0. But this week's rematch in the 2023 World Cup had a different result.
In swinging ball, headed down, tied and won! She did it, Horan!
Wow, Lindsey Horan saving the day for Team USA with a big header to tie things up. That's how it ended, in a draw. Both the U.S. and the Netherlands are now tied atop the standings in their group and well positioned to move on to the knockout round. The U.S. is facing off against Portugal on Tuesday. The Netherlands will take on Vietnam in their next match, which also happens on Tuesday. Best of luck. I'm Veronica de la Cruz. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. Up next, home health care has been gaining in popularity since the pandemic. Del Walters is up next.